Hey you! Yeah, you. Have you hit that subscribe button yet? Go do it!
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on, my fellow fishy fiends? How y'all doing today? Welcome to J Aquatics. I'm Jacob. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. Hope you like it. Hope I can talk you into a subscribe. If you've been here before, what's wrong with you? Why do you keep enduring this punishment? For real though, thanks for all the love and support I've gotten so far. I appreciate all of you that are watching the videos. Before we get started, I feel like I should give a little disclaimer. Some people out there think that $100 is pocket change, and some people have to work several weeks in order to have $100 to blow without having to go on something that's needed. With that, the word cheap is relative. What I mean by cheap is these are just ways I've found to make it cheaper than the traditional way. I'm not saying that you're not going to have to spend money to get a tank set up. If this is your first tank you're doing, some of the things I'm doing to save money aren't going to work for you because you're not already going to have some of the supplies laying around. But some of the things I'm doing are universal. It carries over whether this is your first tank or your 100th tank. So I hope I'm helping somebody out. Now let's get into today's video. We're looking at decor. With decorations, most aquarium decorations are kind of pricey, in my opinion. I prefer to do the little bit of extra work, like I mentioned in part 1. You can do more work and save some money, or you can do less work and spend more money. I like to go out and find my stuff myself, whether it be looking on my own property or going to a friend or family member's property. Be aware of the laws in your area. If you get a fine for illegally collecting wildlife habitat, it will no longer be cheaper for you, I promise. But if you have a place where you can go and legally collect this stuff, do your research. Make sure that you're not getting something that's going to be harmful. Be aware that there is a cleaning process. There is a disinfecting process. You can find all kinds of videos on that stuff on YouTube. Here are a couple examples. Just a random oak branch that I found and a unique little rock. I'm not using these in the tank we're looking at today. These are just some examples. I want to take a quick second and really stress the issue of doing your research. If you're the type of person that chases water parameters, and what I mean by that is it's not just about the quality of the water for the fish, but also you're worried about your hardness level, your pH level, the increase, decrease of those numbers. Be mindful. Some rocks will lower or raise your pH. Pretty much anything you put in your tank will alter the water conditions of that tank. So do your research, know what you're getting into. Better yet, experiment yourself. Set up a tank. Put some of the rock you're wanting in it. Put the branches you're wanting in there. Give it a couple days. Test the water. See what's changing within your pH and your minerals and all that. If you like where it's going, keep on. If you don't like where it's going, break it out. Now you know which ones don't use, or when you want to do that thing, you know which items to use. Another thing to keep in mind is, especially with branches, depending on the type of wood you find, depending on where you find it, they are going to leach tannins. Now there's lots of research that shows that tannins are actually beneficial to your aquarium, but not everybody likes the look of brown water. It's real. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're unfamiliar with tannin leach, it's like making tea. You're soaking a plant in water until it changes that water. You'll actually see the branches I put in this aquarium today do leach out. You'll see from the time I start doing the video to the time we end the video, you'll see the water tint change. I don't mind it. I think it looks more natural, more unique. If you don't like that, you can soak your branches until it stops creating tannins. Just keep changing the water. Be aware. In the forums, in the live chats, I have seen people say it's only taken them a couple days, and I've seen people say it's taken months to get all the tannin to stop leaching out of wood. So be prepared for that. Another thing I want to talk about is the buoyancy of the wood. Any kid who's ever thrown a stick in a lake knows that usually it floats. You have to soak the wood for quite a while for it to get waterlogged and sink. Or you have to be prepared to weight it down. You know, use aquarium sealant or something. You can affix it to a rock and set it in the tank. I don't like doing that because sometimes I like to rearrange and I won't always want it stuck to whatever I've glued it to. So for me, I'm blessed in the sense that I have a large tank sitting outside that's not being used. I just soaked it in the water out there, let it float until it sank, and went from there. You'll also see in this video that even by doing that, I still struggled with one piece wanting to set the direction I wanted it to set in. If I turned it one way, it sank no problem. If I turned it another way, one end would start to float up. So be prepared to play with this stuff to get it the way you want it to look. I've said that a lot. Just be prepared, people. Just be prepared. Nothing goes the way you want it in life. It's life. Be prepared to make a change. So from the decor section, I'll be talking about some equipment. I actually don't have any spare equipment this time to show, so you'll see it as I'm setting up. In this tank, I'm going to be using Aquarium Co-op sponge filters. I think I paid $10 a piece for these things. If you're unfamiliar with sponge filters, they just run off of your air line. So it's a great way to oxygenate the water. It's a great way to keep the water circulation moving. It's also a great bacterial filtration. In this particular tank, I'm not too worried about hard particle debris. If it gets out of hand, I'll throw an extra hang on the back filter on, get it cleared, and pull it back off because I just like the look of only having the sponge filters in it. It's also a lot cheaper. The pumps I'm using are the Aquarium Co-op brand USB micro pump. It's super cheap, super quiet, real low key. It just really helps me focus on the fish and the plants instead of all the equipment inside of the aquarium. I'm using Marineland precision heaters. No specific reason I went with those ones. They were just a good price at the time. Had decent reviews, so I've tried them out. I've used them a couple of times before. I've been happy with them. The lids I'll be setting up for this tank are the same DIY style lids I've showed in another video. I'll leave a description link. I'll leave a description in the link. I'll leave a link in the description for my DIY lids as well as the bubble blocker that you're going to see me set up. If you have any questions about something I don't cover clearly, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I try to be really good about responding to everyone. Let's get to the tank and start setting it up. Okay, I'm going to start with my heaters. In this tank build, I am using the Marineland Precision. This is not a paid promotion, just happens to be the heater I'm choosing to use. They are both 200 watt heaters. While doing my research, almost everyone recommends having at least 300 watts of heat for a 55 gallon. I'm doing 400 so they don't have to work as hard, and I'm doing 2 of them to spread the heat out a little more evenly. These specific heaters can go vertical or horizontal, so I am going to run them at a slight angle just for a little more of an even distribution of heat within the water column. This is all personal preference. It's all what looks good for you and what works for you. I like to have my power cords go out either at the center or the corners of the tank. So something like that there. And then on this build, I found a nice little oak stump. It'll make a great little cave hiding space for something. Nice place to grow some moss on. And it actually had this piece attached to it as well. Nice gnarly root. It broke while I was cleaning it, but I still like it, so I'm going to play with finding a position. All the while thinking about the other equipment I have to place in here. I will be doing 2 sponge filters. I'd really like to kind of hide one behind this stump here. I kind of like that position, so I'm going to work with that and go from there. That will be the only hardscape I'm putting in here. The rest of the decorations will be plants. I think I'm going to glue a little bit of Java moss on this stump in a few places. I'm going to start by getting a few inches of water in here. Well, that is filling the tank with water. I'm going to work on gluing some Java moss on this hardscape. I do have a little spray bottle of water to keep it wet and from drying out. I've got a good little clump of it. Okay. All I did was cut a little section off. A little dab of super glue. Make sure you're using a gel. The area where you want it. And glue it down. You can also use thread and tie it on. You just need to be able to keep it on there until it can root itself. And now that the water is just a little bit over the substrate, I'm going to shut it off for now. From this point, you do have a few options if you're doing a planted tank. You can go ahead and bury some root tabs while you're working it. I prefer to let the plants do their melt back. Every time you move a plant, it kind of goes through a shock, recollects itself. I like to let it go through all that and then watch the plants and let the plants tell me if I need to add more fertilizers and when to add them. I have a tendency to run my tanks heavily stocked, so usually I only have to fertilize in the beginning, and then once the tank is fully seasoned, if you will, the plants usually do okay on their own. But again, I overstock. If you're doing a real light stocking, they might not get enough food source just from your feeding and from the fish waste, so you may have to do your own fertilizers. So keep that in mind. Remember, as you're working with the plants, don't let them dry out too bad. Okay, so I've got all my Java moss glued onto the stump where I want it. I've got this Java fern that I am going to place inside one end of that cave and let it grow up out of that stump as well. Next, I need to finish getting my equipment in here so I can plant my plants around it. My sponge filters, these are the Aquarium Co-op sponge filters. Again, no paid promotions in this video, just what I'm happen to use. These have been sitting in tanks for the last 3 or 4 months, so there's going to be already some good bacteria growth on them. Place that first one. Okay, I got the tubing cut off camera. We're going to feed it through our uprise tube. We'll get our bubble blocker pushed through. See some hitchhikers coming along for the ride. Don't forget your check valve so it doesn't accidentally siphon on you. The other end connected to our micro USB air pump. These things are fantastic. If you haven't checked these out, got this one at Aquarium Co-op. Last time I ordered them, they were $9.99. Super quiet. Super low key. They come with a little carabiner clip so you can hang it if you wanted to. And they run off of USB. And we'll get our second one set up. So if anyone's wondering why I went ahead and did the Java moss before getting the sponge filters in here, it's just because you want to keep the sponge filters in water. And the Java moss is a lot easier to glue on and attach with it dry. So now that that is done and I don't have anything else I'm going to be tying down or gluing, I can do the sponge filters and then raise the water level up above them. Okay, well that's filling up to that level. We can go ahead and plan any other decorations you want to put in here, any other equipment. I'm not doing a hang-on back or any type of sump or canister filter at all in this tank. I'm going to run just the sponge filters. So from here, it's just placing the plants where I want them. So while this fills up, I'll go ahead and start planting those plants and continuing to mist the plants that are in here until the water levels are high enough that I don't have to. In the main scheme of things, the fish are my focal point. They're what I enjoy the most. The plants and decorations are just kind of a byproduct of that. But I really enjoy this bronze cryptocorn. So I am going to plant that in such a way that it kind of acts as a focal point as well. Kind of let it be my centerpiece. Alright, the water level is now above the sponge filter, so I'm going to cut it off and finish planting from there so I don't have to be shoulder deep in the water. I'm not going to take you guys along on the journey as I fine tune it and get it all planted, but we'll come back when I'm all done. What'll be probably an hour for me will be in just a split second for y'all. There's what I'm going to plant and decorate for this tank. Starting at the corner, we have some water wisteria. I filled the entire space up with that. Next, here in the front, we have a cryptocorn wendenti bronze. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I love the color of that thing, and I'm hoping it'll get real big and bushy and kind of be the centerpiece out of the plants. Behind that, we've got the moneywort. That'll grow nice and tall and kind of create our backdrop. Then again, we've got the what I believe to be a Ponageton, the Java moss. I did add an Anubias to the logs. I had to kind of play with the position of these to get them to set nice and sturdy. So they are a little positioned differently than the beginning of the video. Again, we have the Java fern back there, and then this nice lily that came in the same mix pack. So I'm not sure what type of lily that is, but I love that red color. Again, I'm using 2 already established sponge filters. I also left this a couple inches from the top. I'm going to top it off with old aquarium water from a few of my other tanks to really kickstart the cycle. Okay, so here we are. We're about 4 days into having all the water and everything in here. Real quick, sorry for the shaking. I'm holding my phone. I don't have enough space to set up the tripod between the foot of my bed and this tank. Alright, back to the tank. Just so everyone knows, I started acquiring everything for this tank about 3 months ago in March. So I was able to nickel and dime all the equipment. The tank, again, was free to me. A buddy of mine found that for me. And half the plants in here I've actually grown in another tank. So none of the water wisteria or the moneywort cost me anything because I got them off of plants that I purchased for another tank and just continued to clip off once it got to a certain length. Same with all the Java moss. This has been grown. So in this tank, the only plants I paid for was the Anubias, the cryptocorn, the bulb plants, and the Java fern in the back. And it's the same thing. I bought all that 3 months ago and had it in a grow out tank. There really is no reason why you can't have a nice aquarium with all the things you want if you plan it ahead and you purchase everything in steps. Save the life stuff for last. There's going to be guppies in this tank, and that's going to be the same situation for me. I quote unquote grew them in another aquarium. All in all, this whole tank setup has cost me less than $100, and that's over the course of 3 months. So it's not too bad, cheap in my opinion. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I hope I've shown how you can have a nice aquarium, a big aquarium, and it still not kill your pocketbook. As always, guys, enjoy your aquariums. Don't forget to get out there and get fishy, and we'll see you next time.